Did you know that within 7 seconds, literally the time it takes to tie your shoe, someone has already decided who you are? And a lot of the time, that judgment is completely unfair. Welcome to the Behavior Code, the podcast that decodes the hidden patterns of human behavior. I'm your host, Maria.
And I'm Gabriel. It's kind of terrifying when you think about it, isn't it? 7 seconds. Today we're diving deep into the psychology of first impressions, why they happen so fast, what goes into them, and whether we're doomed to be judged by that first fleeting moment.
Exactly. And for everyone listening, just think back for a second. Have you ever met someone and just instantly disliked them for no real reason? And then, maybe weeks or months later, you realized your gut feeling was completely wrong and they were actually great. It really is terrifying because that first impression can open doors or close them before you even get a chance to say a word. It can be the difference between getting a job, making a new friend, or even getting a second date. And a lot of the time, it's based on things we're not even aware of.
Oh, absolutely. It's that irrational gut check. That's what we're unpacking today. It's not magic, it's brain science. And it all starts way, way back. I have a story about that. In my first job, my boss was this incredibly intimidating, stern-looking woman. She never smiled. I spent the first month terrified of her, convinced she thought I was an idiot. I was updating my resume every night.
Let's talk about why this even happens. It feels so modern, this quick judgment, but it's actually ancient.
It's pure survival. Think about our ancestors on the savannah. When they encountered a stranger, they didn't have time for a deep conversation. They had to make a snap judgment, friend or foe, threat or opportunity. That circuitry in our brain is still there. It's running an ancient software on modern hardware.
Friend or foe? Right, it's this super fast subconscious process. Psychologists call it thin slicing. Your brain takes a tiny sliver of information, a thin slice of behavior like a facial expression or a gesture, and makes a broad judgment about a person's entire character. And that ancient software is so deeply ingrained that it can feel almost impossible to ignore. When you get that flash of anxiety or distrust meeting someone new, that's the savannah brain kicking in. It's not a logical process, it's a physiological one. Your heart rate might increase, your palms might get sweaty. It's a genuine, primitive fear response that you have to consciously override. And that software is designed to be efficient, not necessarily accurate. The brain would rather make 100 false positive errors, mistaking a friend for a foe, than make one false negative error and fail to detect a real threat. It's a system built for survival, not for nuanced social understanding.
And the crazy part is, sometimes it's surprisingly accurate. There are studies where people can predict a teacher's effectiveness just by watching a few seconds of them in a classroom with the sound off. Our brains are incredible pattern recognition machines.
But they also take a lot of shortcuts, and that's where we get into trouble. I mean, think about a CEO interviewing someone for a high-stakes job. They often say they know within the first minute if the person is a good fit. They're thin slicing. But that incredible efficiency comes at a cost. Our brains are built to take shortcuts, and those shortcuts often rely on past experiences and ingrained stereotypes. If a person's speech pattern or style of dress reminds our brain of someone from our past who was untrustworthy, our brain will flag them as a potential threat, regardless of their actual character. It's not logical, it's purely associative.
Right. Before the person has even had a chance to really prove their qualifications. They're judging on what? Confidence? The quality of their handshake? It's all part of this rapid-fire assessment.
It's so powerful. There's this staggering fact from Harvard research that says people form 50% of their impression of someone within the first 4 minutes of a conversation. 50%!
Wow. Half the story is written before you even get to the main plot. So, if it's happening that fast, what are we actually judging? What's going into that calculation? That's mind-boggling. It means in a half-hour meeting, the first 4 minutes count as much as the next 26 minutes combined. The pressure is on from the moment you walk through the door. You don't get a warm-up period or a second chance to make a first impression. The judgment is happening instantly.
Okay, so let's break down the science of it. A huge part of it is nonverbal. It's your body language. We're talking posture, eye contact, facial expressions, all those little signals you're sending without saying a word.
Right. The classic example is crossing your arms. People read that as defensive or closed off, even if you're just, cold.
Totally. Or someone who doesn't make eye contact might be seen as untrustworthy or shy, when maybe they just have social anxiety. Your body is telling a story whether you want it to or not. Then there's your voice.
Right, or think about mirroring. When someone subtly mimics your posture or gestures, you're more likely to feel a rapport with them. It subconsciously signals empathy and connection. People who are naturally charismatic often do this instinctively, creating an instant bond without saying a word.
Mm-hmm. The vocal tone and speech patterns. This is huge. People judge warmth, confidence, and even competence based on how you sound. Is your voice high-pitched and fast, or is it slow and measured? Do you use a lot of filler words like and like?
We're probably being judged on that right now. But it's true. A lower-pitched voice is often perceived as more authoritative, while a faster pace can be read as nervous or energetic, depending on the context.
Okay, so we have body language, vocal tone. What's next? The one we probably all think of first, appearance. Absolutely. There's a reason many politicians and CEOs undergo voice coaching. They learn to modulate their pitch and pace to sound more commanding and persuasive. Think about the difference between someone who ends their sentences with an upward inflection, making it sound like a question. It can undermine their authority.
Yup, appearance bias. And it's not about being attractive in a conventional sense. It's about the signals your clothing, grooming, and style send. They act as shortcuts for our brains to categorize people.
There was a study I read about where college students were shown photos of the same professor. In one photo, he was dressed formally in a suit, and in the other, he was in casual clothes. The students rated the professor in the suit as more intelligent and competent. Same guy, different clothes.
That's the perfect example, and it leads right into this other huge psychological principle at play, the halo effect. And it goes even deeper into things like color psychology. Studies have shown that wearing certain colors can influence how you're perceived. Blue often conveys trustworthiness and stability, which is why it's so common in corporate logos and uniforms. Red, on the other hand, can signal dominance, passion, or even aggression. It's a visual vocabulary that we all subconsciously understand and react to.
Ah, yes, the halo effect. This is where one positive trait, just one, makes us see everything else about that person in a more positive light.
Exactly. If someone is well-dressed, we might unconsciously assume they're also successful, smart, and trustworthy. Their well-dressed halo makes everything else about them glow. It works in reverse, too, the horns effect. One negative trait can color your entire perception of them.
So you've got these nonverbal cues, vocal patterns, appearance, and this halo effect all swirling around in your brain in those first few seconds. It's a cognitive cocktail. The horns effect is so powerful. Imagine you're on a first date and the person is rude to the waiter. That single action can cast a negative shadow over everything else they do. Even if they're brilliant and funny, you'll be interpreting everything through the lens of that one negative act. It's like a stain that's impossible to wash out.
A very potent one, and it's powered by some deep-seated psychological biases that are really hard to override.
Let's get into those because this is where the brain's shortcuts can really lead us astray. The biggest one is probably confirmation bias.
So once that first impression is formed, let's say you decide someone is unfriendly. Your brain then acts like a detective looking for clues to prove that theory right. You'll notice every time they don't smile, but you'll ignore all the times they were perfectly pleasant.
You're not seeing the reality of who they are. You're just seeing the evidence that confirms your initial gut feeling. It's a feedback loop. And that ties into another huge one, stereotyping. It's like our brain becomes a biased journalist, only looking for sources that support its headline. This is why it's so hard to change a first impression. You're not just fighting against an opinion, you're fighting against a brain that is actively seeking to prove itself right.
Right. Stereotyping is the ultimate mental shortcut. Our brain sees one characteristic, age, gender, profession, what have you, and it pulls up a whole file of assumptions associated with that group. It's an efficient way for the brain to process information, but it's often lazy and deeply unfair.
And we all do it, even when we consciously believe stereotypes are wrong. It's a default setting. And something else that can hijack this whole process is your own mood. It's the brain's filing system. When it sees a person, it doesn't want to create a whole new file. It wants to put them in an existing folder. It's a necessary tool for navigating a complex world. But the folders are often based on outdated, incomplete, or offensive information. Challenging those stereotypes requires conscious effort.
Oh, 100%. Emotional influence is massive. If you're having a great day and feeling optimistic, you're more likely to give someone the benefit of the doubt and form a positive first impression.
But if you're stressed, or you just got out of a traffic jam, or you spilled coffee on yourself, you're primed to see the negative. The same person could say the same thing to you on 2 different days, and you'd form 2 completely different impressions.
It's not about them, it's about you. And the last big psychological piece of this puzzle is called the primacy effect.
This is why advice like don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry is so wise. Your internal state completely colors your external perceptions and decisions. The same applies to meeting people. If you're heading into a networking event feeling stressed and cynical, you're essentially wearing cynical colored glasses. Everyone is going to look more threatening or less interesting.
Right? Primacy. It just means that the first piece of information we learn about someone carries more weight than anything that comes after. It anchors our perception, and it's incredibly hard to move that anchor.
That's why first impressions are so sticky. You could have a fantastic hour-long conversation with someone, but if the first thing they did was cut you off, that's what you're going to remember. That first data point is written in permanent ink, and everything else is in pencil.
So, this isn't just some interesting psychological quirk. This has real, tangible effects on our lives, right? This stuff matters. This has huge implications for everything from jury decisions to performance reviews. The first piece of evidence a jury hears or the first data point a manager sees in a review can disproportionately influence the final outcome, even if contradictory evidence is presented later. It's a battle against our own cognitive architecture.
It matters immensely. Let's talk about the life outcomes. On a social level, it dictates so much. Who you decide to befriend, who you ask out on a date, who you choose to network with. These quick judgments open some doors and slam others shut.
Yeah, you could be missing out on an amazing friendship or relationship because of a bad first impression that was based on maybe they were just having a bad day.
Exactly. And then there's the professional world, where the stakes can be even higher.
And it creates social feedback loops. If you enter a party assuming people won't like you, you might adopt closed-off body language. People then react to that body language by keeping their distance, which in turn confirms your initial belief that they wouldn't like you. You create the very reality you feared.
Oh, massively. Job interviews are the ultimate first impression test. We've heard stories of hiring managers making a decision in the first 30 seconds, just based on how a candidate walked in the room and said hello.
It's wild. Your entire career trajectory, getting hired, getting a promotion, being chosen to lead a project, can be influenced by these snap judgments about your confidence, your competence, your fit with the team.
And here's where it gets really mind-bending. This leads to something called a self-fulfilling prophecy. I once spoke to a recruiter who told me she mentally hires or rejects a candidate in the first 90 seconds. The rest of the interview is just her looking for data to confirm that initial gut feeling. It's a terrifying thought, that your qualifications are being filtered through the lens of a 90-second impression.
Okay, break that down.
So, let's say a manager's first impression of a new employee, we'll call her Sarah, is that she's extremely confident and a real go-getter. Because of that belief, the manager gives Sarah more challenging assignments, and more opportunities to shine.
Right. He's treating her according to his impression.
Exactly. And by rising to those challenges, Sarah's behavior reinforces the manager's initial impression. She becomes the confident go-getter he thought she was. The prophecy fulfilled itself. But imagine if his first impression was that she was timid. He might not have given her those chances, and her behavior would likely have reflected that.
Wow, so our impressions of others can actually change their behavior. That's a lot of power and a little scary. It makes you realize how important it is to manage the signals you're sending out. This is often called the Pygmalion effect. It was famously demonstrated in a study where teachers were told that certain students were intellectual bloomers. These students were chosen at random, but because the teachers believed they were special, they gave them more attention and encouragement. By the end of the year, those students actually had higher IQ scores. The teachers' expectations became a reality.
Okay, so let's get practical. We've talked about the problem, the science, the consequences. How can people actually improve their first impressions? What are the actionable tips?
All right, tip number 1 goes back to the basics, body language. You want to signal openness and confidence, so stand up straight, uncross your arms, keep your hands visible. Don't fidget. Simple things that signal you're calm and engaged.
Use confident gestures, but don't overdo it. And what about eye contact? That's a tricky one for a lot of people.
It is. The key is balance. Too little eye contact can seem dishonest, but too much can feel aggressive. A good rule of thumb is to hold eye contact for about 4 to 5 seconds at a time. Look away for a moment, then reconnect. It shows you're listening, but it's not an intimidating stare. There's some fascinating research on this. Social psychologist Amy Cuddy's work on power posing showed that adopting an expansive, open posture for just 2 minutes can actually change your body's chemistry, increasing testosterone and decreasing the stress hormone cortisol. You don't just look more confident, you actually feel more confident. It's a case of fake it till you become it.
Okay, that's a good practical tip. Next up, smile, but it has to be genuine.
Yes, people can spot a fake smile a mile away. A real smile, a Duchenne smile, involves the muscles around your eyes. It makes you seem warm, approachable, and trustworthy. Think of something that genuinely makes you happy right before you meet someone.
I like that. Okay, what about appearance? We mentioned dress for context. Another great tip is to use the person's name once or twice. It shows you're paying attention and makes them feel seen and respected. It's a simple act of personalization that can make a big difference in building a quick connection.
It's not about wearing a suit everywhere. It's about showing you understand the social situation. If you're interviewing at a tech startup, a 3-piece suit might make you seem out of touch. If you're meeting a corporate lawyer, shorts and a t-shirt send the wrong message. It's about being appropriate.
Right? Then there's the voice. Aim for vocal warmth. How do you do that?
Try to speak a little more slowly than you normally would, especially if you get nervous and talk fast. And slightly lowering your vocal tone can make you sound more grounded and confident. It's something you can practice. Just record yourself and listen back.
That's a great idea. And finally, maybe the most important tip of all, your mindset.
Yes. Instead of going into an interaction thinking, I hope they like me, which is a very judgmental frame, try going in with curiosity. Think, I wonder what's interesting about this person. It shifts your focus from being judged to being interested, which completely changes your vibe. You become a listener.
That's fantastic. Be a detective, not a defendant. I love that. So much of this is about preparation. Like, role-playing before an interview isn't silly, it's smart. You're practicing the first impression you want to make. That is the core of it. People are fundamentally more interested in themselves than they are in you. If you can make them feel heard and understood, they will walk away with a positive impression of you, even if you've barely spoken about yourself. Curiosity is a relationship superpower.
For sure. And of course, we have to talk about how all of this translates to the world we live in now, which is increasingly digital.
Right. First impressions are no longer just happening in person. They're happening on LinkedIn, on social media, in the first line of an email. Your profile picture is your new handshake.
And people are making judgments even faster online. I saw this one study where people could judge the trustworthiness of a person from their LinkedIn photo in less than half a second.
And that handshake is often your profile picture and bio. It's the first data point people have, and it sets the context for every email, comment, or message that follows. A professional, warm photo isn't vanity. It's strategic communication in the digital age.
zero point 0.5 seconds. That's not even a conscious thought. That's a pure, reflexive gut reaction. It shows how critical that thumbnail photo is. Is it professional? Are you smiling? Are you looking at the camera? It all matters.
And the halo effect is huge online. A great profile picture and a well-written bio can make people perceive your posts and comments as more intelligent. It sets the tone for every interaction that follows. And the risk of misinterpretation is so much higher in text. Without tone of voice or body language, a short, efficient email can come across as cold or angry. The careful use of punctuation, emojis in informal contexts, and clear, positive language is a crucial skill for managing your digital impression.
And don't forget emails. The tone of your first email to a potential client or employer is a first impression. Are you overly casual? Are there typos? Is it clear and concise? That first digital interaction can define the entire relationship.
It's a lot to think about, but it's the reality of the modern world. Your digital first impression is working for you or against you 24/7.
All right, so let's wrap this all up. Let's bring it home. What's the main takeaway from all this?
I think the biggest thing is this. First impressions are incredibly powerful. They're a fundamental part of how we navigate our social world. But, and this is a huge but, they are not always accurate. They're a first draft of a story, not the final version.
A first draft based on mental shortcuts, biases, and your own mood. So the key, both in how we are perceived and how we perceive others, is awareness plus practice.
Exactly. Awareness of the signals you're sending and practice in presenting your best self. And on the flip side, awareness that your own snap judgments are flawed. The practice is about learning to pause and question that initial gut feeling about someone else.
So for everyone listening, our challenge to you is this. The next time you meet someone new, just try to notice that automatic judgment that pops into your head. Don't act on it. Just notice it. That's the first step to having better social intelligence. And for yourself, practice what's called active open-mindedness. That means actively looking for evidence that your first impression is wrong. If you think someone is unfriendly, challenge yourself to find one piece of evidence to the contrary. It's a way to short-circuit your own confirmation bias.
It really is. Well, that's all the time we have for today. If you found this episode interesting or helpful, we'd love it if you'd subscribe to the Behavior Code wherever you get your podcasts.
And leave us a comment about your own experiences with first impressions. We read all of them. And please, share this with someone who you think could benefit from it. Thanks for tuning in.
We'll see you next time.